All right. So, what we're going to be doing in these next couple of exercises is using the 12 principles of animation that we've learned about to apply to graphics and kind of use them to kind of in our motion graphics. So, right now I have this is exercise 6, and I have some text, and I have it falling against the ground. So, if I hit play here, you can see it's falling. Now it's falling at a consistent rate. So we might even want to play in with that sort of ease in, ease out to kind of, I'm going to do an ease out, which means it starts slow and speeds up. I'm doing that by highlighting this keyframe and then ease out. And when you do that, you can see it kind of starts real slow and then it really starts to kind of speed up as it gets down. Okay. Now that's not squash and stretch, but remember what we're going to use is squash and stretch. And the idea is that when in animation, if something's going really fast or has fast velocity, we want it to stretch. And then if it hits something, it should squash where the object kind of conforms or reacts to the thing that it hits. So what I'm going to do is let's play around with scale. Okay, scale would make it really easy to stretch our item. So what I'm going to do with this text is press S for scale, and I'm going to hit the unlock button here. And this is going to allow you to change the difference. The reason why I did that is so I can scale vertically or horizontally separate from one another. And so what I'm going to do is when it gets to about here, I want it to start to stretch. So I'm going to hit here. And right before it hits the ground, which is like one frame here, let's just kind of stretch it a little bit. 140. Okay. So I'm going to do this. Okay. Now it hits, and then what I really needed to do is kind of to squash. Think about like you know, if like dough was dropped and it hit a table, it would kind of flatten a little bit to conform to the thing that it did. So what I'm going to do is come here. I'm going to lower this. Now, one thing you have to understand about squash and stretch. All right, so it's stretching, and then I want it to kind of stay. What I'm going to do is I'd like it to stay at this kind of stretched for like just a smidge. So I'm going to go forward about 3 frames, and let's set a keyframe there. And then it should squash. So as it squashes, let's go down a little bit. Seems a little slow there at the end, so maybe I'm going to pull this in just for speed. Now, it's a little bit off because when you squash and stretch, what you don't want is you don't want the volume to change. So what I mean by that is if you have an object like this and it gets smaller, like less height, it looks like it shrank in size. But if you were to make it wider like this is like it's the same amount of volume, it's just distributed differently. Kind of the same when you stretch it. Like if I were to stretch this thinner like this feels like this shrank, but if I stretch it like that, these all kind of feel like they have the same amount of volume, if that kind of makes sense. So when I stretch my text, I don't want the volume to change. So as it's going like this, stretching, I actually want the I want the the width to come in a little bit. So it's coming in just a smidge. And as this kind of goes, let's get rid of that there. I'm just gonna do that. And as this goes out, why don't we also kind of like do that? So it's stretching, but coming in a little bit, and then it's squashing. Let's play around with timing. All right, splat. Now, there's other ways I could do this. I could apply, maybe like some sort of effect that would kind of smush it a little bit more, like bring this down. But this is just by using some very, very basic, scale here to kind of, stretch my item. So, exercise 7. What I'm going to do here is we are going to make a ball that squashes. So I'm just going to start with a circle. And let's change the position from the top to the bottom. Okay. Let's scale this down a little bit. I'm going to change the anchor point so that it's right at the bottom here. Remember, the anchor point is like where the object pivots around. And let's change. All right, so let's move this up. Okay. And let's play around. I could play around with scale, but let's try a different one. This time, let's use the distort. And what I'm gonna do, let's use, which one do I want to use? Let's use mesh wrap. Okay. And what this allows you to do is kind of play around with your object here. And I'm just going to add a bunch of columns here. Okay. All right, I'm going to go, and then when it gets to here, let's start to distort. So as it's coming down, I kind of want this to kind of scale. I want it to stretch a little bit, but I also kind of want it to. All right, actually, I'm going to use a different effect. I'm going to get rid of the effect I did, and let's go, and we're going to use this effect under Distort called Warp. And I'm going to set under the options here, I'm going to set this to Bulge. And you can kind of see it's already starting to kind of like stretch my item. And what I'm going to do is when I kind of get maybe like here, let's do horizontal distortion. And let's do vertical. And I'm going to use bend, and it kind of stretches it a little. So set it to 0 here, and then as it kind of comes down, it kind of stretches. I'm going to also play around with the vertical because I also want it to go inward a little bit. All right, so if I play that back, then it's going to hit the ground. And when it hits here, let's have it squash. Maybe not. I'm going to change the vertical distortion, and then let's change the scale a little bit. I'm going to take this off and lower that down. Boom. Let's even move that, make it 2 frames long. All right, and then I'm going to reverse this. So let's take the position. And raise it up. Okay. This is where the scale should go back. There you go. Then you can kind of just repeat this over and over. So let's just do scale or position. Then it comes back down. Okay. So it's going up and down. I do got to fix this a little bit. So this is going like that. So you should start making this thinner. Okay. So this is using, squash and stretch and using effects like warp to, really kind of give that kind of squash and stretch to an object. Now, I did this to a red ball that I just created, but you could see how maybe you might want to apply this to text or an image or something like that, where, you're applying this and getting kind of an interesting effect. Okay. So, why don't you guys try that out? That was 5 and 6.